Okay, so would each panelist please introduce themselves and include their name, education, job title, company they work for, and a brief description of what their job entails? Would you start, JJ?
Sure. Hi, I'm JJ Grindstaff-Swathwood. Don't say that 3 times too fast or anything. I have a BA and MA here from UNF, hooray, in the English department. Right now I work for Fidelity National Financial, which is the largest title company in the United States. And right now I'm a project manager. My job right now is to be a glorified cat herder, which means that I help, I'm the buffer between the clients of Fidelity and the business units, so that way the clients don't bother the business units on a daily basis, they bother me instead. So the clients come to me and say, hey, we need this assessment done, and I say, okie dokie, got it. And then I disseminate the questions out and then gather everything back and get all of the documents and then give it back to the clients. And that's kind of my job in a nutshell.
I'm Noreen McDaniel. I am also a graduate of UNF like everybody else. I only have a BA, sorry to disappoint. But I am working on a paralegal certification through the American Bar Association, so that's pretty cool. I am a mortgage claim analyst. I work for LoanCare, which is a subsidiary of Fidelity National. JJ and I work in the same office, which is pretty cool. And what I do is I review foreclosure claims. After a home has been through foreclosure, the bank takes care of it until it's bought out of a short sale. And I review those claims and make sure that they're accurate and that they're within state and federal guidelines. And I also make sure the bank gets all its money back, which is really nice for them. I also used to work at web.com, which is a huge web marketing company here in Jacksonville, and I know a couple people might have questions about that, so feel free to ask me anything you want to know about that.
Okay, thanks. I'm Noreen Stevenson. I'm a graduate of UNF with a bachelor's in English, a minor in journalism, and a master's in English, and a second master's that I'm about 2 semesters away from completing in education. So my job, I work at Mayo Clinic, and my job title is Education Program Coordinator. We could probably spend the next 2 hours talking about what I actually do, but to make it succinct, I'm the administrator for 3 education programs, and graduate medical education is similar in a lot of ways to mainstream academia. They have orientation, graduation, requirements to graduate, requirements to be licensed. They have curriculum, they have board exams and simulation for procedures, and all kinds of things that you could imagine that new doctors have to do to get into private practice. So I do it all basically. I have 3 physician partners who work in conjunction with me to create curriculum, to maintain our certification for all 3 programs, to create policies and procedures and travel and do budgets and all kinds of things. I maintain the internal and external websites for all 3 of my programs as well. So lots of experience with fun things like code writing, which is still like way over my head, but something that I have helped to do to maintain those. So anyway, that's what I do.
Now I feel like I just goof off all day. Carolyn Lachapelle, and I got my master's here also, and also my BA in English. And I work at CSX. I'm a manager of operations planning, and that's my current position. I've gone through several since I've been at CSX. Some more directly related to English than others. This one not so much, not direct. But I help manage a $700+ million budget for track maintenance. So we're the railroad, and we operate over 21 states, over 20,000 miles, and all that track has to be maintained. and the cost of that maintenance is in excess of $700 million a year. That's a portion of what I do. We also have our own rail plants and our own turnout facilities. And I help manage the overhead rates for that. I do data analysis, that data that you're talking about, the SQL language, access reports, Excel pivot tables, crystal reports. I do a lot of financial reporting, doing data mining. So I interact with the field quite a bit. I do weekly budget calls, so I'm talking to roadmasters, to the guys that are actually working on the track. And I'm also talking to our VP of engineering and our assistant chief engineers and chief engineers. So my communications are all over the company. And that's what I spend my day doing.
I'm Courtney Caverly. I am a sales and support senior specialist, is my official title, at, well, technically Bank of America writes my checks. I don't know if any of you knew this, but Bank of America owns Merrill Lynch and Merrill Edge, which are brokerage firms. And I work at Merrill Edge, which is for, I guess you could say, the average Joe to invest on the stock market within their personal retirement accounts or retail accounts. And my job is to review documents that the clients send in, requesting specific account updates. We do power of attorney additions onto the accounts. We also do the divorce transfers. So if two parties are divorced and they need to split up their account, we assist them with that process. And we assist people with getting their accounts out of an abandoned status. And I speak with clients on a daily basis to explain to them the different documents that will be needed for each of these requests, help walk them through the documents, and then once they've been sent in, I review them. And also communicate with some back office areas who do not speak with clients, sort of similar to what Lauren was saying, you know, kind of communicate between the two parties. Or I'm sorry, JJ.
I do the same thing.
And just facilitate different aspects of account maintenance for the clients and help them through different life changes.
Great. Well, it seems to me like most of you have positions that an English major wouldn't immediately be aware of. So what were your original career goals when you were still a student, and then how did you find yourself where you are now? You're like, that wasn't on the sheet. I can't help it. As you were talking, I'm like, how did all these positions happen? Like, I would never have thought to become, I wouldn't even think the Mayo Clinic would hire an English major, and I wouldn't think that so many, you know, financial places would be looking for English majors, or transportation places would even consider an English major to even end up there.
Everybody needs an editor.
Well,
And that is actually, I was applying for a different job entirely, and I had to fill out a monster resume online. And one of the temp agencies in town that helps to provide the railroad with their temps, they saw my resume, and I had data experience with Excel and Access, but I was an English major. And it just so happened the guy that was looking for someone to come in and do the Excel files was drafting a manual for our state agencies, telling them how to go about closing a crossing down and public projects. And he wanted someone that could go through and edit, could do the proofing on that, put the manual together for him. So as far as everyone else in the office was concerned, they hired me to do Excel spreadsheets. What he had me doing 6 hours out of the 8 was putting together his manual. I mean, I went in there and was just doing proofing. And
that wasn't my way of plugging a copy editing course. I did not know that was going to be their response. But I would suggest, I do appreciate the copy
That
editing
one's
courses
full
here.
of
It's already waitlisted. Well, there you go. But clearly it led to positions you wouldn't have thought of. That's great. So my next question is, what piece of advice would you give to students about to graduate when it comes to looking for a career as an English major? If anyone feels like they have a great response.
I would say don't limit yourself as far as the areas in which you're applying. Obviously, we can all attest that you don't have to go into education, you don't have to go into writing or marketing. You can and should branch out into other things. And I feel that areas like ours, finance, medical, logistics, have a lot of opportunities for growth in terms of writing and editing. JJ and I in particular can attest to how far good communication can go for you, and I'm sure Courtney as well. But yeah, you know, English majors are more than just our abilities to read, write, and comprehend. You know, we have great critical thinking skills. We analyze things every single day, everything that we read and write. You can put your analytics to use in any kind of position. You don't have to just, you know, be like, oh, here's Chaucer, you know, as Kayla was saying earlier. You know, you can be like me. I had no experience as a claims analyst when I applied, but I saw the word analyst and I thought, well, I'm good at dissecting books, so how hard can it be? And here I am. So don't sell yourself short. You know, think outside the box a little bit when you look at these job descriptions and be like, okay, what's the closest root word to what I actually do as an English major? And how can I spin that and make myself more valuable to this company? Because that's really what's going to get you where you want to be.
And to kind of go off of that, what I did for 2 years prior to becoming a project manager, which I've done for all of 2 months, was I was a technical writer at Everbank, which is potentially more interesting to many of you in this room, so I should have mentioned that before, sorry. So where my department fell was in the risk management group. So what might be interesting to the majority of you in this room is that the risk management group for most financial industries, it has a lot of they need a lot of the skills that we already have, like Lauren was saying. What we inherently do on a daily basis and what I normally call, well, that's just common sense, is not what most people have. Because, for example, the other day we got in a big request from a client and they happen to have a huge lawsuit out against them that I discovered from Googling for about 2 seconds. And I brought it up to my manager and said, hey, don't you think that could potentially be a problem if we, you know, are associated with these people and they're doing these really bad things? And she said, yeah, actually, that might be. And so we brought it up to our lawyers and they were like, no, I don't know why you think that's a problem. But me coming from a background with risk management for 2 years, I'm like, no, that's a huge risk for us. I don't understand why you don't see that as an issue. So, whereas I see that as, again, a common sense thing, apparently it's not. So branch out, as Lauren says, look into any industry that you wouldn't normally think of. Look into things like risk or analysts or compliance, things like that.
And that's with the railroad. I mean, you think transportation, railroad, trains, you know, but you can do almost anything you want to do within the railroad. I mean, we are our own little metropolis there. We have a contract department. We write our, you know, contracts with other short lines and with other railroads. So we have risk management. We have an environmental department. We buy and sell real estate every day. So we have realtors working there. We have a law department. And we have an entire floor devoted to the law department. So anything that, almost any job that you could find as a specialty somewhere else, you know, law, contract, environment, whatever, we do that. We have corporate communications. I mean, we have our own public relations people. We put out our own newsletters within the company, and we also write our own press releases. I mean, obviously. So we have a lot of opportunities for writing, and every job posting that comes out, it is a stock standard good communication skills, good written and oral communication skills. I mean, every job we post, I know I meet at least 2 of the requirements, you know, everyone, because they all have that.
Great. This is a question I know a lot of people in here would like an answer to, so I'll ask all the panelists to respond to this one. At the company you currently work, or the company you currently work at, or the companies, or of the companies you've worked at in the past, so you can speak to anywhere you have worked, what are the hiring practices for English majors? what should applicants know about your company in order to assist them in the application process? How do we get hired where you work, or where you work? So Courtney, if you wouldn't mind starting, and then we'll go this way.
Sure. So also kind of piggybacking on the previous question, I've not been in a hiring position at the bank, but I have been close friends with someone who was, and I can tell you, based on what they've communicated, your major is not so important as the fact that you have a degree. So at the bank, we don't look for specifically any type of major. The fact that you have a bachelor's or a master's, even better, is essentially what they want. They want to know that you can be committed to something long enough to go through the process of a university, that you can use critical thinking and work with other people on a team, which obviously universities do frequently. And that's really their main focus, that you stuck it out and that you will be committed to your next position. I would say anytime you're going to apply to any company, when you're looking at the job posting, use those skills that you have from your English degree to pick out keywords from that job posting. Does it say that they're specifically looking for someone with great communication skills? Does it say that they want someone who's a great teamwork person? And plug that into your resume, because that's really what's going to catch the eye of someone who's looking to hire. And then the last thing that I would say is, in terms of your interview, confidence, confidence, confidence. Go into it knowing that you can do this, knowing that you are the person for the job, and make that known to them, not only in your demeanor, but also in your attire. You always want to be definitely professionally dressed. I know it's Casual Friday, so I'm not so professionally dressed right now, but make sure that you're wearing a suit, lots of eye contact with your interviewer. Make sure that you try not to use the ums and the pauses. If you need to take a moment to think about your answer, that's fine. They don't expect you to have all the answers right off the bat. So that would be my top 3 pieces of advice.
So I'm going to reiterate the cover letter and the keywords. A lot of companies, I know ours, we use scanning software. So whenever they're asking for a specific job and they list skills that are required for it, I mean, part of what they're doing is we're getting in hundreds of resumes and applications. And so they're scanning for those words. I mean, if they say that they need someone that has spreadsheet, ability, or whatever the skill may be, you have access, you know how to use Word, whatever. They're scanning first for those words. So whenever you're especially in the cover letter, I mean, that's your first impression. I mean, most people, believe it or not, they don't put on cover letters. I mean, they consider that it's over the top. I mean, they send out mass resumes, and that does not show the company that you really want a job with them. I mean, they get 200 plus. We get 200 plus for every position we post. I mean, you have to do something that makes you stand out. And I mean, one of your advantages is that you know how to write. So put it into your cover letter. I mean, you know how to research, know something about the company. I mean, you're not going to give the railroad the same cover letter, the same resume, even for a data analyst position, that you're going to give one of the banks or the Mayo Clinic. You need to pull the keywords in from that industry. You need to know something about the industry. You may not be able to walk in there and start talking about, frogs and turnouts, but there are some basics that you need to understand, about the company itself. And put it in your cover letter and mirror those keywords.
I would definitely second that, using the job description to plug in keywords, not only in your cover letter, but also in your resume. And then the other thing I would say is, sometimes all that's required in a job description is bachelor's required, master's preferred. You know, sometimes the job descriptions say that. And even if you don't have everything that the job description says is required, you know, I still say go for it. And, you know, rewrite your resume if you have to reflect or highlight, you know, some of the words that are in the job description to, you know, the best of your ability. The other thing I would say is sometimes all you need is a foot in the door, especially for a company like Mayo Clinic. You know, when I got hired there, I was doing freelance writing, and I had a change in personal circumstances and needed a job with benefits. And the woman who hired me said, you are totally overqualified for this position, but take it anyway. There are many, many opportunities to move up in this company. And she was absolutely right. I did that job for a couple of years, and then a different job came open in administration. I was supporting the printing department, and they were over the moon excited that I had a bachelor's degree in English because they threw all the planning proposals at me that were going to the executive officers to approve, and said, proofread it, make it succinct, you know, put in, you know, the buzzwords that they're looking for, and make it look amazing, so they'll say yes to this proposal. You know, that wasn't what they hired me for, but, you know, they saw that I had those skills, so they certainly put them to good use. And I got to know other people by doing that job and saying yes to all the planning proposals that I was editing and improving. And, you know, and then I got another job that was, you know, really more in line with my skill set. But, you know, if I hadn't said yes to that job that I was totally overqualified for to begin with, I never would have gotten the other jobs. So, you know, I would say be flexible. You know, grin and bear it if you have to, maybe for a year or two until, you know, if you know that you are applying to a company that has potential for growth.
To kind of piggyback on that, especially in the mortgage finance industry, there's not a lot of positions that you can just immediately jump into. Most of them require that you have at least a basic knowledge of mortgage finance. So to kind of say that sometimes just getting your foot in the door is the best thing you can do for yourself. I know pretty much nobody likes working customer service jobs, let's be honest. And especially for banks where you have to deal with customers who are concerned about their homes and their money, that seems like the absolute last thing that you want to do. But you could also look for entry-level jobs doing data entry work, which is what I did when I first started working in mortgage finance. And it really opened up a lot of opportunities for me to, one, learn about the industry, and two, get comfortable with the jargon, so that way when another position came up, I could really, you know, peacock my feathers out and be like, hey, I'm great, hire me, so I can stop being on the phones. But also, as far as a creative kind of outlet kind of job, when I worked at web.com, I was the supervisor of the copywriting department. And as far as hiring practices for that avenue, we specifically would look for English majors and journalism majors to bring into the copywriting department, because you are putting out marketing-driven content for small business websites. So we really needed somebody that was creative, that could think on their feet, that could work with complicated data and kind of twist and mingle and turn it into something brilliant and beautiful and sparkling. So a lot of times with creative endeavors like that one, you're going to experience questions about your ability to write to deadlines, to juggle multiple projects across a variety of industries or interests. And you can also probably expect something like a skills test. I know that at Web we used to surprise people at interviews with a skills test where we asked you multiple choice grammar questions and then made you write some cute copywriting stuff.
It's a great surprise.
Surprise, here's a test. I hope you don't have anxiety. The reason we did that though is because the way that web.com is set up is you pull data from a queue. So you never know what kind of website you're going to get. You could have 4 dentists in a row. You could have a livestock breeder, which was really popular. You could have somebody that's creating their own product, things like that. And you had to be prepared on the spot to write something for that genre, whether or not you were comfortable with it, whether or not you knew what it was about. And we would give you information to kind of work off of, but you had to be the magic maker in this situation. You know, the person buying the website can tell you all about their product, but they're not selling it, they're just telling you about it. You have to sell it. So the purpose of the surprise test was to see what you could do when you are forced to confront something that you have no preparation for. And honestly, some of the best things I've ever seen as far as ad copy came out of these random spring it on you tests. So you'll be surprised what you guys can come up with under pressure.
Yeah. What they said, no, I guess kind of top 3 things. Tailor your resume, do it pretty much for every job, or at least job areas, and then kind of go at it from there, depending upon the job, with all the keywords and stuff. I won't repeat it, you guys know. Once you get into the interview, the main phrase that I've started using that seems to be received well is I have intellectual curiosity, which is my nice way of saying that I'm not dumb. And it seems to, and I say, you know, I like poking at things and I like, you know, figuring out how things work, and that indicates to them that, hey, I'm really interested in learning about your company, how it works, how this department works, and how it all kind of fits together, and yeah, I'm gonna learn all of your new software in about 2 seconds, and what else do you have for me? So it kind of shows, you know, getting into the interview and showing them that you have that kind of agility, as I'm sure most of us do growing up with the technology that we've had, or, you know, having to deal with it as we've, you know, moved along throughout college, will help with that. And I think that's everybody's pretty much said everything else, so there you go.
Yeah, you covered it really well. Really great advice. What is something you wish you had known when you were looking for a job after graduating? Anyone can answer this one.
So I'm kind of non-traditional in that I didn't go to school full-time. I worked full-time and took 1 or 2 classes a semester, so it took me 1,000 years to finish my degree.
Here,
She knows, you know. So I can say that nobody could have prepared me for how difficult it was to juggle coursework and a full-time job. There were a lot of opportunities or times when I was so overwhelmed with work that school had to go on the back burner. And there were some opportunities where I had to give up school altogether to advance my career, because what was more important, being able to eat or being able to dissect whatever Dr. Minicall wanted me to read this week? So I can say that one thing that you should keep in mind when you are looking for a job is to manage your expectations and what you are physically capable of doing and handling. And then also your expectations for what you're going to be doing. I know sometimes breaking into a new industry is tough. Like I said, you know, especially mortgage finance, sometimes you have to work the phones, and that sucks. Nobody likes to do that. But the plus side is the skill sets that you develop from that. You know, so think of what you as a person, as, you know, a writer or a creative, can take from any job that might seem like your worst nightmare, and what you can do to use that to build your arsenal to pull yourself up and out. Because it took me a while to figure all of that out and get that work-life balance, and my life is infinitely better now that I have that figured out. So that would be my thing: manage your expectations and know your limits.
I would say I wish I had had a session like this before I graduated, because I really did think that, you know, I could probably just either be a freelance writer or a teacher, you know, and I quickly found out by substituting for a half a year that I hated teaching kids. And I'm sure some of them are still scarred to this day from those experiences. So I really, you know, I wish I had had something like this. I wish I'd known about these different opportunities so that I you know, I may not have wasted that much time thinking, oh, I either have to be a writer or a teacher. You know, there's so many other things that we can do with our degree. It's really just a matter of, you know, kind of getting out there and looking at job descriptions very carefully, as was said before.
I wish someone had have made me articulate why I decided to major in English before I was in my first interview. Because that is the worst place to have to sit there and fumble through. Well, I don't know, I like to read, it made sense, it was logical, I like to think, you know, these are all answers that make sense in this room, but they don't really make sense when you're doing a panel interview with the railroad, you know, and now I'm trying to put into terms for them how majoring in English allowed me to study psychology, it allowed me to study history, archaeology, art, you know, it just religion, and it goes back to the intellectual curiosity, you know, it's the degree that challenged me. You know, I didn't learn a specific set of rules and regulations, you know, you do debits here, you do credits there, I still don't know where the hell they go. I've worked in and around accounting for, you know, over 20 years now. But being clear on what it is your English degree has given you when you walk in there, so that you can talk about how, you know, the critical thinking, you know, what it takes to take a 4-line poem and cough up a 20-page paper on it, you know, that takes research, that takes imagination, you know, and think about the skills that it takes to be good at what you do, and be ready to answer, so why did you get an English degree? Because the rest of that they're not saying is, and why do you think it matters here? You have to answer that question. They're not going to come right out and ask you, why do you think you can work here? I mean, you have to know that, especially if you get someone who asks you why the English, that the unspoken is, and how does it fit here? So just answer it.
I would say something that I was told when I was in college, but that I didn't really take to heart until much later, was it's not what you know, it's who you know. Mm-hmm. Networking is a really great asset. If you don't have a LinkedIn account yet, get one. Mm-hmm. And start friending anyone and everyone, because you never know when Carolyn's going to lead you to Noreen, to Lauren, to JJ, who has a job opportunity that's perfect for you. You never know. So definitely communicate with other people, talk to other people, you know, ask them, what do? Do you like it? Do you guys have any openings? Get to know the people in town and see if they have any opportunities or any advice for you, because people that you never would expect can present the best position for you.
Two things. One, every job that you take on each other, and you will learn things, even if you don't think you're learning things, that will help you out in your next job. Whether it's learning from the company's culture, or learning a particular skill set, or learning that you really, really hate dealing with customers, or whatever it is. You will learn something and you will grow from it, and you will know what to do better in your following position. Piggybacking on the interview questions that you might not suspect, if you're applying for a writing position and you also happen upon a grammar guru, a question that you might encounter is, defend the Oxford comma and explain why. And your initial reaction might be the example of, we invited the strippers, Stalin and Hitler, to the party. Don't say that.
Other things just
Think of literally anything else. Otherwise, you're going to be like me, who had that immediate thought and then went, oh no, you can't say that, don't say that, don't say that, don't say that, and then sat there like an idiot for about 30 seconds trying to think of a response, and just instead went, I did not get that job. So, no to expect anything in a job interview is the second one.
Well, and thankfully now we can cite the court ruling of $2 million for not having the Oxford comma.
Yes.
So instead of having
Exactly.
to, result to Stalin and Hitler, like we all would.
Yes.
Constitute Stalin and Hitler, that's where we all go.
Right,
But,
because it's funny and memorable.
but with business, we can bring up money and that relates in a way that,
Yes.
makes sense. Courtney, to emphasize your point about LinkedIn, that is something that we do not take advantage of often, is knowing to have a LinkedIn account. And so shameless plug, but Sigma Tau Delta will be hosting a LinkedIn workshop next semester because I do not even have a LinkedIn.
Shame on you.
And I did not realize how great they are. Someone in the crowd, Holly, had actually told me that just having a LinkedIn that isn't even updated, you get job offers that you don't expect and you meet people that you don't expect that lead to careers and positions. But it's, how do we start? Where do we begin? So that's something that, it's great advice and it just emphasizes the point of it's helpful to have one even if you don't
Know what you're doing.
know what you're doing. Exactly. And we'll help you figure it out. We'll learn together.
Yes. Remind me to hit me up after this because I know somebody who might be willing to help with that.
Look at networking. You see what's happening right here. This is how it's done, people.
And when you do, I mean, just start friending people, sending out invites, because I have people on mine that I have no idea where they come from. I mean, someone from Washington State or something. I don't know who you are, but, okay, I may want to go there one day. It is, and, CSX has gone through some pretty intensive layoffs, and they've helped with the employees by sending them, to help get them prepared for another position. And the first thing that they did was to get them set up on LinkedIn. And that was like the first session was get a LinkedIn account.
Well, I'm sure all of our panelists would add you to your LinkedIn.
Yeah,
So,
Sure.
If you've got one, Ed.
yeah, Adam.
I'm the only one who's super easy to find.
I can say too, LinkedIn has a recommendations feature where people can write letters of recommendation for you. Highly, highly recommend that you do that. Even if it's just like your friend's mom, you make her sound important and have her write something nice about you. Because my previous boss's, now friend, recommendation did help me to get a promotion. So it goes a long way when people see that other people recommend you for positions.
Great. We've talked a little about the skills that you required as an English major, but could we be a little bit more specific about what skills specifically have helped you in the positions you currently have that you required upon graduating? So what are some of those skills that you might not have realized that in Dr. Medical's class or in Laura Heffernan's class that suddenly, wow, thank God I learned that. This is really helping me in mortgages.
Shameless plug for Dr. Kimball. Basically everything that he teaches you. No, I've looked, I know, I'm sorry.
Minus the dead babies, or is the dead
I
babies?
can't tell you how often I have to tell her to stop talking about dead babies.
My husband gets mad at me because I play a game of how much can I cook everything to infanticide. Anyway,
You read sacrifice on cereal boxes.
Yes.
Oh my God.
No, okay, so no, I learned a lot from all of my professors, and I use everything that I learned from them, whether it's like super in-depth reading skills or what have you. But the main skill that I learned from Dr. Kimball that really helps me to keep my patience and my cool in daily office life is that you're not infallible and that your eye is totally and possibly potentially incorrect. And you need to check yourself, and always check yourself, and have really good self-talk. And that if you don't take anything else from any of your other classes, you need to take that into any office space that you go into. Otherwise, you're going to have a problem.
I can second that. It's really important to be self-aware in an office building. A lot of people envision, well, we're adults and we work in corporate America.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly like high school. People are cliquish, people are terrible, they're out for themselves. It is dog eat dog sometimes, and you gotta hold on to the bastion of good people that you find. So be prepared to be self-aware. How are you presenting yourself to other people around you? You might one day have to interview for a job and you might have pissed somebody off in the lunch line or something. So you need to be very careful about how you present yourself, how you interact with other people. Also, if you're gonna talk smack, don't ever put it in an email. Don't ever have it written down where it can be used against you in a court of law.
I see too many head nods on this panel. That seems like really good advice that everyone has
I'm
learned.
very serious. Don't incriminate yourselves, guys are smarter than this. Take it from the parent.
Emails are forever.
Emails are forever.
Yeah, that's very important. Also, my ability to make connections across a broad spectrum of data has been super helpful for me. Just being able to look at something and say, okay, how did this get here? And doing the research to put numbers to invoices and invoices to services has helped me so much as a claims analyst, because I've been able to recover literally millions of dollars that were missed because somebody didn't look at an invoice close enough, or they put in the wrong 0 and decimal point. So your attention to detail, your ability to edit, your ability to make connections is very important just in general, but also when you're working with money.
Don't pay invoices that have an invoice number of duplicate.
Yes, don't do that either.
I had a clerk that did that. Okay.
Gosh, did they get fired?
No.
Question.
We just laughed at her.
Via email.
In caps.
Oh, also, don't reply all, ever. I'm serious, don't ever do it. If somebody tells you to
Repeat
reply
that, 'cause
all,
students reply all
don't
a
do
lot.
that.
I've seen
Yeah.
emails and I'm like, I don't think I'm supposed to be reading this.
don't do that.
Is there any more skills that you've learned with your degree that you might not have realized would apply, but are suddenly really thankful that you learned them? Especially since we're all UNF alumni. These are things you are learning in these classrooms that we're also in.
I would have to say written communication is so undervalued, especially in like the business world. You know, people, I got a promotion at my job because I was the only one on my team who knew how to write an email that made sense. I'm not kidding. I mean, it's insane. They don't know how to use sentence structure, grammar's out the window, so definitely written communication, huge asset. And also being able to have like a 30-minute conversation with the client and then summarize it in 4 sentences so that when that client calls back and speaks with someone else, whoever is speaking with them now can read my notes and they'll know everything that we talked about so the client doesn't have to repeat themselves. So being able to listen attentively and then summarize it succinctly. It's definitely something that I have huge value in from being an English major.
I think research is one of the areas that I use the most. I do a lot of database creation. So I work out of Access and Microsoft Access, and then we have other programs, Crystal Report Writing. Tableau is the new rage, does these awesome maps. And they all use their own SQL, and structured query language. And I didn't go to school for that. I took a class in SQL years ago, and it was just like pretty much over my head. But we have Google now. So knowing how to ask a question and to go out there and do the research on, you know, if I want this thing to, you know, subtotal in 4 different ways, and if it's over 5 million, I want bright red flashy lights, you know. If I can think it, somebody's tried to do it most of the time. So you can go out and, you know, and I research it, and I have people come to me all day long, and it's like, I'm like, why don't you guys, well, I guess because they have me do it. Why don't you guys do this? All you have to do is look it up. I'm suddenly rethinking who the smart one is. But they'll come in and ask for help doing something, and it's like, oh, okay, and it's like, you know, 5 minutes on Google, and I'm in there going, okay, do this, this, and that. So it's knowing how to go out and just having that be a go-to. You know, everyone could do what I just did. It just never occurs to them to do it. And I think that, you know, coming from an area where that's all you do, it's second nature to just look it up, you know.
I would say being concise, learning how to, be impactful but concise. I mean, I can't tell you how many things people have handed me and said, we have like 8,000 characters to fit this narrative in. What, and I have 2 pages here. Can you help me, pare it down? And, that is really a skill that's becoming more and more valued because, people don't want to read, 2 pages on why your program is amazing. They want you to give them the bullet points and make it impactful. The other thing I would say, which, I agree, research skills that I've acquired while getting my degree are incredibly valuable today. I now know how to find the most obscure article, to support, my point or to support, something that we're trying to get done. And, I wouldn't have had that had I not, been in a master's and bachelor's program. The most unexpected skill that I acquired getting my education, I think, is learning to question everything. I can't tell you how many times I got through reading a piece of literature that just kind of blew my mind because it was like unlearning everything I learned in elementary, middle, and high school. Unlearning every historical event I thought I knew everything about. Literature teaches you how to think differently and how to be more open-minded and think out of the box and to question everything. And I think that's the skill that comes in handy pretty much every day when I'm at work, is to question everything. Because we've done it this way for 100 years is not a good answer, I think that's a skill that we all probably could say that we use all the time. So.
And so much of what you do, no matter what your job is based on persuasion. I mean, you want someone to do something. I manage numbers for the most part, but there are people that create those numbers, and I need them to do it right. And that means I need to persuade them, and I need to communicate to them why they need to do it this way and not that way. And part of getting that good communication with them is knowing my audience. I mean, I'm not going to talk to the guy in the field the same way that I'm going to talk to the VP down the hall. You can get away with language with one. You use different vocabulary. You have a different, there's a different tone. Otherwise, I'm coming across as uninformed with the VP, or I'm being, condescending if I'm talking to the field guy a lot of times. I mean, you've got, and depending on your VP, that can actually be flipped. But I mean, that's where knowing your audience, and that's part of what, you spend a lot of time doing when you're reading is you're analyzing the text. And part of coming through the English program, I think, was being able to apply that to the world around you. I mean, that goes back to the classroom. There's nothing outside of the text. We're all text, and it's being able to read their story and then to do an interpretation that is good. And the self-awareness comes in reading yourself. And that's something that you're taught to do every day.
It's really amazing to hear about how the stuff that almost becomes inherent as an English major suddenly transitions so well into these jobs that you would never imagine. But there are things that you then have to learn on the job. So my next question is, in the position you have, or positions you've had, how much experience did you acquire on the job? What things were you expected to know or be proficient at relatively immediately? So where were those learning curves at for you guys?
I'll go first.
Go for it. You good?
So I had an entry-level position with Merrill Edge, and I knew zero, talking nothing. I knew nothing about retirement accounts. I knew nothing about trading on the stock market. I knew nothing about banking, and they taught me everything I needed to know. They taught me what an IRA is. I don't know if anyone knows this, but it stands for Individual Retirement Account. I had no idea when I started there 5 years ago, and now I can tell you what your maximum contribution amount is for that per year, you know? So there are positions out there where you can walk into it with zero knowledge in that field, and they will give you everything that you need to know. So like we were saying earlier, don't be afraid to expand your job searches and look at things that you're expecting that you'll need to have some background information, because especially with entry-level positions, they will teach it to you. If you can show that you are a quick learner, you work well with others, you have good communication skills, which you all already have all of that, then you're good to go.
Yeah, and I think remembering that if you've been called in for an interview, first of all, you've met the minimum requirement, so now it's up to you to sell yourself. And if you have the job, then you've more than met the minimum requirements. So, I mean, now you're given the opportunity to expand. And there's no job that you're going to walk into and you're going to be doing the same thing every day that you've done the first day. I mean, you're expected to learn on every one. Mine going in the door was the Excel, working out of spreadsheets. And then as the side job, the editing. But the computers, I mean, everything is computer-based now, so good computer skills. I mean, the Microsoft Office is the most commonly used one. The first raise that I received when I started with the railroad was a $2 raise because I knew how to revise a PowerPoint presentation. I didn't even create the PowerPoint presentation. I went in and I changed some dates on it. This is literally a $2 an hour raise. Like, whoa, that was encouragement to learn more about Microsoft. But any of that, I mean, Microsoft Word, Excel, if you can get access, the learning how to do the data language. I mean, it's another language. When you start writing, doing any kind of programming or coding, I mean, it's another language, and that's what you're good at. So that was what I was expected to know, was the Excel, and that was that's where my interest was. I mean, because it's a form of creativity, and I think if you go through and you like the creative side of English, the being able to go in and take a story and make almost anything out of it that you want it to be, as long as you can support it. Whatever job you get, if that's, you're going to have to find what is it about majoring in English that you really like, and then find it in the job that you go into. Because you're not going to get to probably study English for the rest of your life unless you do go into teaching. But for me, you know, whenever I do the financial reports, create a new database, I mean, that's my taking a story or telling a story. You know, I'm starting with the bare, you know, the minimal, the numbers or whatever the data points are, and then I'm creating something from it. And some days, looking on this as a, you know, an act of creation is the only thing that keeps me from losing my mind. But, you know, you use it.
I would say at my place of employment, they definitely expected me to have good written and oral communication skills. They expected me to be organized. They expected me to know, to know Word, to know Excel, to know PowerPoint, things like that. They also expected me to be able to talk to people. You know, I had one person say, well, you have a master's degree. I know you've done presentations. I know you've had to do presentations in front of the class. So this should be a piece of cake. Just get up there in front of these 500 executives and tell them, you know, what the planning proposal is, you know. So it's, you know, that is an expectation too, and also research. You know, people expect you to have some research skills. They expect you to be self-motivated when you come in with a degree. You know, you've managed to complete all the coursework for a bachelor's and a master's, so we shouldn't have to tell you what to do. You should be able to be self-motivated and meet some deadlines and things like that. The things that I learned on the job were a lot of medical terminology. I will tell you somebody else's experience because I kind of had a little bit of an edge. When I was much younger, I worked in an emergency room for a little while, and I also worked for an eye doctor, so I did have a little bit of medical terminology under my belt. But my daughter's friend came to me one day and said, I have got to stop waitressing. I am going to go postal if I don't get out of this job. It is just mind-numbing and I'm over it. Can you please help me get a job at Mayo Clinic? And, I told her the same thing that I said earlier, it all depends. Sure, you can get a job if you are willing to, start anywhere and work your way up. She had a bachelor's degree in, I can't even remember what, but they gave her the job contingent on the fact that she committed to doing I think it was like a 3-month medical terminology course that they paid for and they provided for her. And she said yes, that she would do it and got the job. It was an entry-level job, but the year after she got that job, she had completed the medical terminology course, and she was really interested in being a research coordinator, which paid probably twice what she started off with in the entry-level job. And so she had to wait a year because that's the requirement at Mayo Clinic. Under special circumstances, you can move up a little faster than that, but you usually have to stay in whatever job that you get for at least a year. And when her year was up, she had networked, she had done her medical terminology, she had volunteered for everything that Mayo Clinic was involved in that year. She had met the right people, and she got the job as a clinical coordinator, making exponentially more than she did in that entry-level job. So they will train you in the medical terminology that you might need to do some different, to move up in different positions. But you have to come in with the foundational skills that, that having a degree will give you.
Like everybody else said, having a foundational knowledge of basically any kind of internet browser, but 98% of the time you're going to be working on Microsoft Office type things, and probably Internet Explorer, because I don't know why. Most companies don't use anything better, and I'm sorry for them. It's frustrating though, really.
Security issues.
Yeah. I would say that one of the things that I was not prepared for when I first started working in production environments, and the majority of my jobs have been in production-oriented environments, have been metrics and having to meet a certain amount of metrics in order to keep your job. I got into mortgage finance when I was a junior in high school. I worked part-time after school and just did data entry stuff, but I was expected to complete a certain number of accounts before I left. And if I didn't do that, I would be written up, and it goes in your file, and it's this big thing. It's very like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be written up. But that kind of expectation of you will have to do this to maintain your job was something that took a little bit of getting used to. Not that it was unusual, because that's what we do as students, but to see it put into the workplace was kind of
The
weird for
grading
me.
never ends.
The grading never ends.
It's
And then
true.
having to enforce it as a supervisor was even more harrowing, because then I had to tell people when they weren't doing a good job, and that was never fun. So making sure that you understand what the expectations are for your role, and that you feel confident doing those things, and if you aren't confident doing them, that you ask for help. Please don't be afraid to ask for help or additional training, or just to admit that you're out of your depth, because no supervisor wants to see you fail. They hired you because they think you can do the job. And if you're honest with them that you think that you're not doing a good enough job, they can help you get to where you need to be. I can't stress that enough. So just, one of the things I learned was humility, being like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm sorry, help me. And also metrics, trying your hardest to meet your goals. And then something, being willing and being open to learning other things too, so that way you don't cut yourself off. If you get pigeonholed into one particular role, that's not going to bode well for you. You need to be able to expand your skill set. So reaching outside of yourself is really important, and kind of getting comfortable doing things that you might not normally do. And like I said, I ended up in mortgage finance as an English major. You ended up in Mayo Clinic. You ended up in logistics at CSX. You can do anything. You just have to be willing to stretch yourself a little bit to do it.
Drop. So again, lots of foundations that you need to have. They don't tell you that they expect you to actually kind of go outside of your department and talk to people and network and make those connections with other people. So when I started at Everbank as a technical writer, I was in the policy office, which meant we kind of had our hands in every department in the bank. So not only was I expected to be very functional at my job, which was, writing, but I actually needed to be able to talk to these people and be a relationship manager and make sure that I was communicating well with them and making sure that I was writing their documentation effectively and it was accurate and all of that fun stuff. So that's not necessarily something that they'll tell you that they expect of you, but you have to be able to communicate with people effectively and also play nice, even if you don't want to. So there's that. Oh, I had something else. I should have written it down
On my paper?
on your paper.
With your invisible pen?
Yes. Other things, or they'll say, oh, you have this particular skill, like I'm pretty decent with most of Microsoft Office suite. They said, cool, do you know anything about SharePoint? I don't know anything about SharePoint. Oh,
Linda knows about SharePoint, obviously.
Yeah, I'm giving her PTSD flashbacks apparently. So they said, great, can you make us our SharePoint website? And I said, I guess. So I know how to make a SharePoint website now. Unfortunately, SharePoint's going away in like 5 years, so that's not going to help me. I had another company say, cool, you know how to do Photoshop. Can you do InDesign? And I said, no. And they said, great, can you make our pamphlet in InDesign? And I said, I guess. So I learned InDesign. Also, fun story, it's really hard to work any sort of Photoshop program when your computer does not have a graphics card. So be sure to push back on that and get a graphics card for your work computer. So don't be afraid to try new things, because Google is always your friend, and you can learn new skill sets that will most likely help you down the line, and you'll have a lot of fun doing it, at least for the most part, hopefully. I thought I did. So.
And I saw that pamphlet. She did a good job.
Thanks.
And working with others, I mean, the group projects that everyone has to do that we all hate, if we're honest, those do not go away.
Nope.
I mean, I don't think I really realized how beneficial they were until I started working at CSX. And it's like every time you turned around, I'm getting stuck on another team with 5 people from other departments, and none of us really know what we're doing, and there's no clear agenda we have a very nebulous goal, and
Figure it out.
yeah, and I mean you find yourself at some point just spending 6 hours a day in meetings, and you come back the next week and no one has really done anything. So learning how to navigate the group and actually getting things accomplished in there. If you can walk into a group at a meeting at CSX and get something done by the end of that group, we all love you.
That's what I have to do now.
I'm hearing a lot of advice about essentially being a yes man, or not being afraid to take on new challenges. But have you guys had experience in your jobs where you've had to say no? And then what was that like? And if you can you be particular? Because I know, especially when you're new to a career, it's easy to fall into saying yes to everything, but you can overwhelm yourself to the point where you're no longer a good employee.
I I was lucky in that when I first started, I came in as a contractor, and I was actually only 20 hours a week because I did a semester as a master at grad here in the psychology program. I was going to get my master's in psychology. I realized it's not a whole lot different analyzing people from analyzing text, and there was a lot less possibility of damage if I stuck with text. I came back to English after the semester, but it's true. But I was only working 20 hours a week at CSX, and I wasn't that invested in the job. So whenever my director would come and keep piling stuff on, I felt comfortable telling him, and I never said no, I won't do it, but the way I would put it was, okay, so now you've asked me to do this, this, and this, and I can do all that, but not at the same time, so you need to prioritize for me. What is it that you want me to do first? And I had a great first boss, and he would prioritize it for me. It's like, you tell me what is your priority, and that's what I'll get done, but yeah, I mean, don't sit there and spaz out because you can't do it, or just half-ass it, basically. I mean, if you let them know that, you're going to have to prioritize, you're not Wonder Woman, or man, whatever.
You can be Wonder Woman if you want, though.
Yeah, it's okay, there's no judgment. I actually had a, back on my topic of you learn from every job that you've had. The job where I learned to say no was, I worked for a mom and pop shop. They were a bakery up in Northern Virginia near DC, and I worked for them for about 8 months while I was finishing up my degree here. Long story, I'll tell you guys at the thing if you're interested. And they said, hey, we really like you a lot, after me working there for about a month, which should tell you something. Would you be our assistant manager? And I said, no, because I don't want to work in retail for the rest of my life. I would prefer to do something else. They asked a lot of their employees that they probably shouldn't have. So know your rights and know the laws and learn when it's appropriate to say no.
Kind of to that effect, I think offering compromises is another great way to deflect your no, so that it's not quite as confrontational. For example, recently, I'm a planner. I have a planner. It's like this thick. It looks like a Bible. And it's because so much of my time is split across school and 2 different jobs, and I'm all over the place, panels, things like that. So I request time off months in advance, and I plan all my stuff around the days that I have off. And recently, we were doing some restructuring at LoanCare, and we were dropped this massive project. My team is 2 people, including me, not including my boss. My boss does not do the work, we do the work. So when this massive project comes down, they were basically like, okay, we need you to complete all of these accounts by Friday. And this is 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday, and I was scheduled to have Thursday and Friday off. So I felt bad. I didn't want to leave my teammate in the lurch. It's not fair to her that we got dropped a project last minute. So I went to my supervisor and I said, hey, I'm not willing to come in Thursday and Friday. I planned these days literally months ago, and I can't cancel any of my appointments for it, but here's what I'm willing to do. I will stay late and work my portion of the project so that my coworker is not left in the lurch. And rather than just say, sorry guys, I got PTO, my boss is really appreciative that I offered to come in and stay late or work early to help my coworker out. And we ended up getting the project done ahead of schedule. I did enough work Tuesday, Wednesday, that she was in a good position to get the rest of it done Thursday. So we were ahead of schedule, which looked good on us, but it also looked even better that I didn't kind of screw everybody over. So I think it's really important to make compromises if you think that you can make one. Otherwise, like JJ said, assert your agency. Don't let people steamroll you into doing things that you're uncomfortable with, or things that make you question your morals or ethics. There will be times when your bosses will ask you to do things that make you uncomfortable. You should tell them no. And if they have a problem with it, that's not a person that you want to work for.
She said a lot better than I did.
You're welcome.
Thanks for being
No, I
here.
think that's great advice. There's a difference between saying no for moral reasons, but then there's also a way to negotiate your no because you're not capable of doing the task the way they're asking.
Exactly.
So I think that's really great advice. If anyone else has any more advice, wants to chime in, otherwise we can move on. My next question, we've kind of touched on a little bit, but I wanted to know specifically about what about your career has surprised you? What aspects about your job did you not expect or predict when you were still in college? So if you think back to the student that was going to classes here and sitting in lectures, and then think about you and who you are now in your position, what would you not have predicted or expected? Or what is just funny to you, they're like, oh my gosh.
Like Courtney said, that literally nobody knows how to put a sentence together.
Yeah.
So many emails are unintelligible. I have no idea what this person said. And then you have to write them back and kind of guess. Oh, do you mean X, Y, and Z? And if they say yes, you're like, oh, thank God.
Just to clarify.
Just clarifying. You know, that was a really big surprise, how very few people understand sentence structure, grammar, punctuation. When you get a block of text that has literally no punctuation in it and you have no idea what they're talking about. Also, people not checking chain forwards on emails. You'll be included on an email from somebody that started weeks ago and you'll see all sorts of drama that probably was not meant for you. That's a big one that surprised me, that people don't follow up and make sure that the information that they want you to see is being seen and the information they don't want you to see is not being seen. Because sometimes knowing too much does not do you any favors.
Don't forward Jack as a jerk to Jack.
Yeah, don't do that. Like I said, don't put smack talk in emails or online chat functions at your work computer. That was a surprise to me, just how hard it was to communicate with people.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's people that you don't expect either. It's higher ups, it's lower downs, it's everybody in between. It's all of them. I didn't expect any of it because I thought I was going to go into academia, and then I decided that was a lot of work and I didn't want to do it anymore. And
Just being honest.
I'm just being honest. Like,
This
This is the
Noreen, I
truth
decided I
circle,
didn't
that,
like
like
children.
these
Yeah.
4 walls, it's the truth cube,
Yeah.
so everything within it.
like
It's sacred.
there's no reason to lie. I didn't want to do it anymore. So corporate America has its own intricacies and difficulties that, come with it, and you have to be expecting of it, or you have to, I'm hopeful that we're letting you know what to expect. Other things I didn't expect, having anxiety about dreams about emails that I didn't actually send, or spreadsheets. So there's that to look forward to. You're welcome, everybody.
Oh, that's what she said.
Yes, that's what she said indeed.
JJ discovered you don't use "that's what she said" as a joke in the office the
Yeah.
other day.
Yeah. Doesn't work.
In the show, it's okay, but in the actual office.
Yeah,
Don't
actually,
do it enough.
say it, think it, don't say it, just.
So maybe English major humor doesn't translate
It never
corporate
does.
It never
America
does.
as
It
much as
never
we might
does.
think it would.
Even if your boss was an English
That is
major at
fine.
one point, it doesn't translate.
They don't have quite the same appreciation sometimes for vocabulary and for words and for the nuances. So see what I just did there? They don't get that, what you just did
So
there.
Noreen was totally right. Concision is a skill that we might not realize when we're asked to write a 20-page paper. We're like vamping as much as we can. That other skill is also okay, but you only have this much room, so just say it and don't oversay it.
Plain speak is also really important too,
Mhm.
because as writers, we're all used to that flowery language, building. Look at this story I wrote you in this email about claims. But really, they don't understand what you're talking about when you start saying things like conditionally. So you have to.
And get to the point.
Yeah.
I mean, I take off a day from my office and I will go back in and overnight I will have 80 to 100 emails in my inbox that I need to scan through. 85 of those I'm gonna chuck. But 5 of them I need to respond to. And I don't want to read 3 paragraphs before I get to what it is you want from me. I mean, if you can put what you want from me in the subject line, I am a happy camper. Because it's just, we don't have time to read. Everybody in that company gets emails like that. So you do need to just be very brief, to get to the point. And emails have been, because that's one of the areas that you just kind of expect that by now everybody knows how to email. But the tone that can come across in an email is amazing.
Yeah.
We have one guy, and he still works there, but one of my first, the things that I was always tagged for was you have to be the one, you email Kenny, because Kenny's emails were freaking vicious. Nicest guy in the world. If you talk to him, he had no idea he was being vicious. He really has no concept of tone in an email. I love Kenny. But, his emails, I get them, and I will laugh at them and just go, oh my God, they're accompanied with an eye roll. But being aware of that, such a simple thing, but so missed.
Brevity can also come back to bite you though, because a lot of people assume brevity is rudeness in an email. So I tend to be like that, where I say what I need immediately and get it out of the way. A lot of people don't like that. So now I changed my signature to say thanks with an exclamation mark. And that made all the difference.
I do
People
that
assume
too.
I'm not being rude if I put a big exclamation mark at the end.
Okay, no, we have
And
to be.
if I know them, I might start it with, hey.
Yeah, hey.
We have to be
Smiling.
We have to be real though for a minute because, okay, ballpark 90% of us in here are women. Ladies, you will probably be thought of as rude if you don't have exclamation points and smiley faces in your emails. It is a thing. I'm not joking. I wish I was. It's a study. Go Google it. I'm not kidding. You have to toe the line. If I have to be like, as per my last email, I said that, and then, thanks, have a great day, exclamation, smiley face, otherwise I come off as a jerk. And it's annoying, but again, I'm kind of a relationship manager, project manager, cat herder, whatever. So you have to toe the line, whereas a dude might not have to do that, so.
And a lot of times, in my company for one, when we have so many people that work there, some of these people, I know their names, I've been hearing about them for years, I've never met this person, we've emailed for years. And then one day you walk into one of those hateful meetings and there they sit, and it's like, oh, that's you. So your email is the only thing that they know about you.
Right.
That is you, you're on that screen, so. Yeah, exclamation points are good, especially if you're female, you're right. I'm lucky, I work in the engineering department, and they have zero social skills.
They're like, oh my God, she's talking to me.
It's like an episode of Big Bang Theory.
Well, I literally had one of my coworkers yesterday tell me that he had already warned someone that I was a bitch.
Wow.
Yeah, this is what happens when you Facebook your work friends. They feel like they can talk to you like that.
Don't Facebook your work friends.
Yeah, that's it.
It's a good piece of
Don't do
advice.
that.
While we're on that subject, be careful about your social media presence. LinkedIn is great, but when I worked at web.com, we Facebook snooped every person that applied for copy. Because to be honest,
HR departments will routinely do that now.
Yep. And if they find out that you're bad talking the company in any way, shape, or form, you can lose your job.
Just don't.
Just
Drunken
don't do it.
photos at the
Don't do it.
beach are not a selling point either.
Be careful about the content that you make public. If you're good with your privacy settings and you make it so that your drunken beach photos are only visible to your friends or
Close
best
friends and family.
Yeah, that's fine. You don't want a potential employer going to your Facebook and seeing you doing a keg scan. Nobody likes that, except maybe people at web.com. I don't know. Some of us might. But definitely be careful about your social media presence. Be careful about how you connect to your businesses on social media. Facebook allows you to say where you work. That's a HR thing, and they will immediately start tracking you if they see that you've connected to them as your place of business on Facebook. And they will watch you. They have stuff flagged for anybody that's connected to whatever your business is. So that's a huge thing. Also, don't think that low-key social media websites like Tumblr are safe. we know where Tumblr is. We see the things you write and we can see your tags. So be careful about what you say and how you say it, because it can and will come back to bite you. I learned that. I actually had an employee once who was all over Tumblr talking very terrible things about the management structure, about people in higher positions of management. And unfortunately for them, they forgot we took a class together where we had to follow each other on Tumblr, Linda. And seeing as how I was their boss, I had to report them, and that was not a good experience. So it's very important that you don't friend your work friends on Facebook, and you don't tell them what your Tumblr is, and that you don't talk smack about your business if you're going to link yourself up to it.
So I have
If your
one-
friends outside of work, I would,
Yeah,
that's an exception, but otherwise, no, I do not recommend friending work friends.
So I
They
have one
learn
final
more about you
question.
than they should know.
Before I release it to everyone to ask their own questions, I have one final question. We've done a little bit of name dropping tonight, which I think is great, because it always alerts people to the class that maybe you haven't had experience with a certain professor, you never considered a certain class, and now you might realize, wow, I actually might want to invest some time into that. But I want to know if there's anything in particular that you learned in your English program, graduate or undergraduate, that has greatly assisted you in your career. So if you want to name drop a person or a course or just a key concept that really is helping you out, this would be the time. And I'm sure that people would appreciate it because not everyone's graduating in December.
The Writing Center, I will start with that one. Because when I started about, 10 years ago, I was at CSX, but I was going for a new position. And totally out of the area, outside of engineering, what I had been doing. And I knew the importance of a cover letter, but I had been away from it for so long. I could have researched it and, taken a little responsibility for myself, but I know Linda. So I promptly sent her an email and said, oh my God, this is the job I want. What do I say? And she helped me. So, it just so happened she was a friend. I could have just as easily have walked into the Writing Center and said, I'm trying to do this, help me. And they do. So that's the area that.
Did you ask her to say that?
No, I didn't.
But I will charge her.
Yeah, and a lot of English majors, we don't come over here, but just so you know, you're in the Writing Center right now, like this is it, this is the building, so if you do have that issue and you do need help, you just have to come back here, see our friendly faces.
I'm good at writing cover letters.
Well, I got the job, so.
She must be good.
Yeah.
I can't say that it's particular to my career, but Dr. Morrow has instilled in me a healthy fear of dying.
I think he's teaching that class right now.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is, and I
will
made
be
Paige
there
take
with
this
you
class.
in about 3 weeks.
It was the best class I've ever taken, hands down, aside from fandom with Linda, because I love that class and I'm a nerd, so it makes sense. But it really taught me a lot about the psychology of the brain and how far your brain will go to prevent you from thinking about dying. And I had some experiences in that class. I read so much interesting literature that it really made me think about what was important to me as a person and what I wanted to get out of life before it all comes to an end, and who knows what happens afterwards. But that really kind of shifted me towards becoming a lawyer, because the things that were important to me were things I wasn't pursuing, and I wanted to go after them, like creating a better place to leave on, my death legacy for anybody who's taken that class, helping with the environment and preserving the earth because it's the only one we've got. So now as a paralegal, I want to go into environmental law and start helping to rebuild all the things that we're tearing down. And I don't think I would have gotten there if I hadn't taken that class and I hadn't really thought about it and been like, dang, what am I going to do when I die? I don't know. So I guess in a way it assisted me in figuring out what I really wanted to do when I grow up. So that was pretty cool. Kimball.
I was like, I had a
already said
pretty
it.
big name drop since Sam
It
already.
scares I heard that there's some other guy who just walked in the room who's having a technical writing class, which would have been super helpful for me.
I will
Donovan.
plug Tim Donovan teaching copy editing, because even being able to take that as an internship. One, I landed a paid internship as an English major, which is
How did you
unheard
do
of.
that?
Nice.
Are you a magician?
It was more than I make at my job. That was how well this paid internship was.
Wow.
That was the
And,
rabbit thing, right?
huh?
That was the rabbit.
It was a technical writing job for a technical company, for a technology company, and basically all I did was just copy edit and copyright all the time, and I got to do it from my house, and I learned skills on when to say, okay, this is how long this is gonna take, and I never would have imagined that one class would so greatly change what I wanted out of my degree. I went from thinking I was gonna teach, and it was gonna be this, and I was gonna become this academic, and I took technical writing, and I was like, oh my god, I love this, like,
Manuals forever.
and you learn so much, like, embarrassingly, I took Tim prior to that class as, a lit course, and my,
You learned nothing.
well, he'll tell you that my writing was atrocious, and he joked that my final for copy editing was going to be copy editing my final paper from the class before. It was that bad. And I'm so glad that was a joke, because I never want to look at it again. But just taking a copy editing course, even if you don't want to go into technical writing, it changes how you think about your own writing, and unfortunately it changes how you read other people's writing. But for yourself, it betters you all around. So I will shamelessly plug technical writing from any professor that's teaching it, because it's really helpful.
Absolutely. I mean, I have people come to me and ask me to help them do proposals. We do executive summaries. I mean, just about every project that we do executive summaries for. We do project summaries. I mean, we have to send out bid letters to contractors. So, I mean, technical writing is, no matter what area that you're in, at some point you're going to have to do something that would fall out underneath the technical writing rubric. So that's an excellent course.
And you can put it on a resume.
Mhm.
You can write technical writing.
That's a huge skill too, to put on your resume, is technical writing.
I say no pressure.
Oh my gosh, I would love to plug by name, but I cannot remember. I mean, I can see him in my mind's eye, but the professor who taught my theory and rhetoric class, he was pretty amazing. And at first I was terrified, because I had to learn all these different theorists and their model of writing, and all this crazy stuff that it was just a little overwhelming to me. But when you take a whole semester and you learn how to make people think the way you think, the way you want them to think, by writing a certain way, it is amazing how that translates into your job. I can't tell you the amount of times that I had to, really think about, how do I want to approach this? How do I want to write this piece to get the impact that I want? And all the professors who handed me back my paper and said, this put me to sleep, write it again. I love each and every one of them, because they taught me how to make my writing impactful. And then I will just reiterate what I said before about the literature classes that I took with Dr. Neese and Dr. Cartwright, that were, some really obscure minority literature that, I never would have known about in a million years had I not taken those classes. But they really taught me to think differently, and to question everything that I had learned up until this point, because so much of what I've found, even through my own kids, watching their education, so much of what was taught to them, was just boxed history. And when you read all this crazy obscure literature from other points of view, you find out that so much of that, might not really be true.